So we're going to talk about MLA citations and signal phrases. I assume that you have done kind of MLA citation since, maybe give me some guesses with your hands. 5th grade? When's the first MLA citation you've ever had to write?
6th grade.
6th grade? All right. So I assume you guys did them throughout middle school, so it shouldn't be new. The signal phrases part of this lesson might be a little bit more challenging. All right. That hopefully once you understand what a signal phrase is, you'll find it easy enough to move forward. Okay. So first, let's start with that simple MLA book citation. If you have your pocket style manual, I believe book citations are on page 144. So you're welcome to look at page 144, and it gives you all the details you need. But I have included the details here for you as well. Citations are really simple for books. In fact, each edition of the MLA has simplified things further. All you need is the author's last name, the author's first name, the title of the book, which you of course would put in italics if you were typing, or you would underline it if you're writing it, the publisher, and the publication date. If you remember, probably back in 6th grade, they used to make you put the publication city and things like that. Don't even need the location anymore. In our global world, these huge publishing companies usually have places all over. So as long as your book has been published after 1900, you don't need to worry about where it was published. So let's do real quickly. Take your Things Fall Apart, take Persepolis, and write a perfect citation of that book. Take 2 minutes and do that right now, please.
Wait, which one?
I mean, you're going to do both, so I was saying let's start with Things Fall Apart, just because that's the one I have in hand. But then I will make sure we do both of them before this is over.
Which page is it again?
I just want you to write the bibliographic citation for Things Fall Apart. So no page, like cite the whole book, just like I have in my screen there. Last name, first name, title of the book, publisher, and publication date. Most of you probably have the same edition that I have, so it should be pretty similar in terms of content. Take another 30 seconds to try to get that first citation done. We'll compare what it looks like, and then we'll do the second. So the author's name, this is probably backwards on your screen, but should be pretty straightforward to do. His last name is Achebe, comma, first name Chinua. The book title is Things Fall Apart. Super simple so far. Then we get to the complicated stuff. How do you find the publisher? Where did you look? And what did you find as the publication date? Can anyone unmute yourself and share your process, please? Go ahead, Olivia. We're excited.
I think my book looks a little bit different.
I have that one too.
So I just went in the 3rd page, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and it just says at the top, the Penguin Books. And then
Perfect.
the date is like right below it. I don't know actually which one to put. The first Anchor Books edition published or the published from Penguin Books. There's 2 different years. But
Great
right
question. All right, so Olivia is absolutely right. This inside, there's often, right, there's the title page, which gives a lot of information, but then there's usually like the Copyright Library of Congress entry page as well that has most of this information. So mine is this, if you have this cover, it's published by Anchor Books still. This is the Anchor Books publication of it. Some of you have that newer one that Olivia has, which is the Penguin publication. So either you would write Anchor, you would write Penguin. You don't even need those other words associated with it. You don't need to write group or incorporated or sons or anything like that. You just write the main name of the publisher. So my case, it's Anchor. Olivia's case, it's Penguin. Which publication date should she choose? Any guesses out there, or do you know? Sorry, say that again. Was that?
The oldest one, I think is what you should choose.
So the oldest is most likely the original copyright. So probably all of you, if you look at that copyright page, right, it says that the book was copyrighted by the author, Chinua Achebe, in 1959. At least that's what it says on mine. Is that, do you guys have a similar copyright date? Okay, so while that's true, that's not what we're putting in the works cited page. And the reason is that if you think about what the works cited is, it's saying that you got a quote on page 35. I need to know exactly which copy of Achebe's book you are reading to know where page 35 falls, right? Because my page 35 isn't necessarily the same as Olivia's page 35 because 2 different companies published this book. All right, so you use actually the most recent date. So it gets a little tricky if there's like forwards added or things, but there should be a book that says, or there should be a place where it says kind of like, in my case, Anchor Book Publication or Anchor Book Edition 1994 is my publication date. All right, so even though this book was probably printed last year, it feels like it's a pretty new book. It was the page, the way the page is designed and where words fall on the page has not changed since 1994. So that's the date that I would use. Olivia, is the Penguin one a newer edition than that? What's your publication date?
2017.
Perfect. So you have by far the newest one. Excellent. Very, very good. So that's pretty straightforward. Can you please do the same with your other summer reading book? Go ahead and find Persepolis and do the exact same thing. Cite Persepolis, please. The author should be pretty straightforward, right? Satrapi, comma, Marhain, period. Title of the book, Persepolis. Technically, because Persepolis comes in multiple publications, we probably need the full title, which I believe is Persepolis, A Story of Childhood. That's the first edition. If you look at that Library of Congress citation, I think it says Persepolis, A Story of Childhood or something. Is that what the subtitle is?
The Story of a Childhood.
The Story of a Childhood. Great, thank you. Can someone who is neither Olivia nor Chime, since they gave me the answers last time, tell me what you found as the publisher, or which company is the publisher, and what is the publication date.
I got Pantheon Books.
Excellent, Kyla. That is, everyone should, I think it's only published by Pantheon Books, so that should be everyone's answer. Excellent.
And then 2003.
Excellent. That's what mine is too. You might have, I think some of them maybe are 2004. There's like a couple of different editions, but I think all of them are published by Pantheon. So it would say Pantheon, comma, and then either 2003 or 2007, I think might be the other one. There are a couple different dates out there. Everyone pretty comfortable with that process of citation? Awesome. I had hoped that you would be relatively good with that, because that's a skill we're going to use periodically, but it's one of those things that you kind of just have to follow the directions. It doesn't take any particular deep thinking. You just have to find the information and plug it in the right spot. On the other hand, what I would like to talk about for the last few minutes of class are signal phrases. All right, and both this little citation we just did and the signal phrases we are about to do are your homework tonight. You're going to have a little quiz tonight. You can take as long as you want on it. You may use all your notes, but it's just kind of an assessment to make sure you really do understand what we are talking about. So a signal phrase, as the name would indicate, all right, a signal phrase is a short phrase that introduces a quote, paraphrase, or summary. Signal phrases signal to the reader that an outside source is being used. Right? So we use signal phrases so that we give people credit. We introduce to the reader like why they should care about this quote. And it makes a good quote should always be sandwiched by your words, right? Your words are the bread, the quote is whatever you're filling the sandwich with, but it should always be surrounded by your words. So these are three examples from the Purdue OWL site, I believe. The CEO of Lighthouse Consulting predicts, right? That is the signal phrase. Who is saying this quote? Well, it's the CEO of this consulting company. A year of exciting, challenging endeavors that will expand the company's horizons and stimulate growth throughout the company. All right? So we know he's a little bit biased because he's the CEO of the company and he's saying, we're going to have a great year. So it's kind of important to have that context. Similarly, if we were introducing a statistic, right, according to a recent survey from the Pew Research Center. Where am I getting this information that I'm about to share with you? Oh, it's a survey from the Pew Research Center. Pew Research Center is kind of a big deal when it comes to surveys and statistics and things. So we could, as a general reader, we'd be like, oh, this is probably a legit survey. It's not, Jane just polled her 3 neighbors and said 75% of people believe this one thing. Right? This is a legit research thing. Similarly, that summary, the nutritionists, Young and Robinsons, propose that who's saying that we need more iron soy sauce? Well, the nutritionists, Young and Robin, are telling us that. So we use signal phrases all the time to introduce quotes. This will be one of my biggest pet peeves in your writing in this class. If you do something like this, where you just drop in a quote, and this one's pretty well done, I will admit, right? It says, however, the merits of cancer screening are currently debated by new data. And then it has a quote. It says, yearly prostate exams are not nearly as effective at reducing the risk of dying of prostate cancer as most men think. You see how those two sentences are connected, and yet that quote is just dropped in. There isn't any lead in. However, if you see the highlighted signal phrase, and that whole thing is the signal phrase, according to Dan Boyd, the director of cancer research at the Woke Clinic, who just produced one of the new studies on cancer screening, yearly prostate exams are not nearly as effective, yada, yada, yada. Right? So the signal phrase should give us context. It should tell us kind of why we're using this quote. It indicates some sort of lead-in that is why we're using it. Okay? So, here is our little activity, moving on to our final activity of the day. Here are two different quotes that have signal phrases. If your first name is A through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go A through H. If your first name begins with the letters A through H, type in the chat what the signal phrase is in the first sentence. All right, if your name begins with J through T, type in the signal phrase in the second sentence. You can't just copy and paste my page, you actually have to copy it out. So just type it in the chat and I can see as it pops up. What do you believe is the signal phrase? This is one of the things that you will have to do on your quiz tonight. Identify signal phrases. On the quiz, it's easier because you can just copy and paste it, but where does the signal phrase begin? Where does it end? And if you don't want to share it in the public chat, you can just chat directly to me in another window. That's perfectly fine too. I would like a record of everyone's guess though. Good. All the answers that I'm seeing in the chat look correct. Pretty much everything before the quote is the signal phrase, right? It's not just the person's name, it is also their job description, all the way up to and including the comma technically. That's all the signal phrase. Very, very good. So it's not just according to Samantha, it's according to Samantha, this professor, yada, yada, yada. All of that is part of the signal phrase. Right. So when we write, we're always going to try to use signal phrases. And we'll have this shared as a document later, and I'll have it posted in class when we meet in the classroom. But whenever we're introducing a quote, it is helpful to know that there's a list of verbs that's really easy to use to introduce that quote. And so if you go back to whatever you put on your poster, you might say, Okonkwo argues, or Marhane's father acknowledges, or the author writes. So there are very, very easy phrases that you can do to introduce the quotes. It is now your turn to practice in terms of your homework for tonight is to complete the quiz that is linked online. It is making a citation from a book you've never seen before. It is identifying various signal phrases. If you just copy and paste and submit it, it should automatically grade, and you might be able to see your results right away. I'm not sure exactly how I set the sharing for that part. But thank you so much for your attention today. You are free to go. Enjoy your afternoon. Hopefully the weather stays pretty nice. Stick around if you have any questions. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.